My name is Scott McLeod. I'm a member of Nautel's customer service team, and I'm going to show you how to properly compute the thresholds for the Vector series transmitter. In this example, we're using a Vector LP 250 watt system connected into a test load. And I currently have it set up for its operating levels. It's set to a forward power of 128 watts and a modulation percent of around 90 to 95% modulation. And we can verify our keying by just enabling the speaker for a second on this unit by going to peripherals, select peripherals, and enabling the speaker. And that's the sound of the transmitter keying to the correct ident, which we have set to video for today. So when computing thresholds, the first thing we need to know is how do we go in to set our thresholds. The menus are in settings and monitor settings. And the two things we have to set up is power thresholds and mod percent thresholds. So we go into power thresholds, and there's a note that pops up, and it says, before proceeding, make sure that you have set the power level to your desired operating condition, which we have. We're at 128 watts power, and that's where we want to operate. The low power limit is minus 3 dB. This is an ICAO spec, so you should leave that at minus 3 dB. And the upper limit is typically 2 dB, and I would suggest you leave it at 2 dB. Then all you have to do is hit Compute New Thresholds and wait a few seconds, and you'll see that the low power limit number changed and the high power limit number changed. And these are the new limits for the system. So it was that easy for power thresholds. Now we'll go back and look at the mod percent thresholds. Now the note here says, before proceeding, make sure that you have set the ident tone to the minimum acceptable modulation depth with PTT, or press to talk, inactive, and again with PTT active. Now you only have to worry about PTT active if you're using voice, and 99% of the people out there are not using voice, so we will not worry about that. So we're just going to do it with PTT inactive. But the note does state that the modulation depth has to be at its minimum level. So we have to go back out of here because we're not ready yet, because our modulation is at our operating level, which is 90 to 95%. So what we have to do is reduce that modulation level. To do that, I'm going into peripherals, keyer settings, audio levels, and I'm going to highlight the keying pot and hit modify. And I'm going to lower that number until my modulation gets to my low level. Now typically the low modulation you want is going to be like 60% or less of your typical operating. So since we're operating at 90, we want our low level to be around 54% or maybe a bit more. So just set it there, make sure it's stable because we are keying. Okay, so now the modulation level is 51%, so this can be our low limit. That's fine. I'm going to hit done, go back to the main menu, and then go back into settings, monitor settings, mod percent thresholds. So once again the warning appears, but we are now at the minimum acceptable modulation level, so we can just go in. And once again we have to compute new thresholds. Now this takes not a few minutes, but maybe a minute to compute. And you'll see the value here change when it's done. So you see the 26 change to 50. So now we are done and our thresholds are computed. But remember that we have now set our audio to the low level, so we have to go back into the keyer settings and increase our modulation to where we want to operate. So we go back into peripherals, keyer settings, audio levels, highlight the keying pot and hit modify, and increase till we get back to our 90 to 95% mod. Okay, so there we are. We're in our range. So the last thing we're going to do is hit done. Go to the main menu and change the mode in the changeover control from the monitor mode is now bypassed. We're going to change it to normal. And now if we go into main menu in status, we should have no alarms. So that means our thresholds are properly calculated. And if for some reason we have a fault in the transmitter that causes the transmitter power to drop below the low limit we set, or the modulation to drop below the low limit we set, the transmitter will automatically change over to the standby side if it's a dual, or will shut down. And that's how we set up the thresholds. If you have any other ideas for videos you'd like to see, please email support@nautel.com. Thank you.